American Timelines is a member of the Queen City Podcast Network, powered by Ortho Carolina. Find out more at queencitypodcastnetwork.com.
History for jerks.
Samantha, that's a hickey.
Stranger came in and slit his throat. Blood. Terrible mess. I was covered in blood.
Old people have boners and their boners.
Covered in blood. The smell of decomposition was obvious upon driving into the property.
That's probably
Covered in blood.
get into the bathroom.
What do you do?
He shat on the bed.
Covered in blood. Why does it?
Old.
Why does it feel so good to put your feet up?
Kick back, relax, put your feet up with a nice bottle of highly acclaimed Kentucky breakfast stout with espresso.
Ooh, that sounds terrible.
What do you mean? Why? What sounds terrible about it?
I don't know that it's chocolate stout. I don't know.
It's a breakfast stout. It's not chocolate. Espresso.
Okay, you ready to
But it does
start?
taste a little chocolatey. Yes.
Okay. Welcome to another episode of American Timelines. I'm Amy.
And I am a robot, a podcast robot built by the Russians.
Yes. And this is the podcast that brings you all the crazy, interesting things from the past.
Interesting bits in chronological order.
All right, you're not doing the whole podcast like
chronological order.
No.
That's what we do. History, notable events,
that. Stop it.
notable alumni
Stop.
in chronological order.
All right. Anyway, today we are
Beep,
doing...
boop, beep, beep.
Knock it off. I'll slap you.
Did you ever wonder who went to high school with Marla
No.
Gibbs?
We're not doing alumni. You said that was a different podcast.
I'm sorry. I am only built to spit out notable alumni that went to school with Marla Gibbs.
All right. Today we're talking about 1966.
1966
Yes.
was a year in which a school existed that Marla Gibbs went to.
And
Welcome to Marla Gibbs Timelines.
Stop it.
Sorry.
we are in the middle.
Myself up.
We're kind of in the middle of 1966 now.
We left off last episode in April with the Church of Satan. Mm-hmm. This is the church.
right.
This is a Satanistic podcast.
No,
No, it's not. Just kidding. We go to church just like everybody else.
no, we don't.
Okay, we don't go to church,
We were
but
full of
we
it.
both have been to a church before.
Yes, that's true.
Yes.
I've been to some funerals,
and never once has lightning struck either one of us while we were in the church.
that's a good point, honey.
So there you go. We might be good people.
Okay, so what's the first thing we're going to talk about?
Well, we're jumping into May of 1966, and I have a little bit of tidbits on the NHL championship. The Montreal Canadiens
Jesus.
defeated the Detroit Red Wings to win the Stanley Cup that year. No, but you're going to like this. I tried to look at this from your perspective. It's like, okay, we have to talk about the hockey championship. That's just a must, right? Mm-hmm. And you don't care about hockey or the game. I actually don't care about hockey either. Mm-hmm. So I thought, let's take a little deep dive. Maybe I can find a murder or a mystery or something interesting about anybody to do.
That's why it took you so long to do your research.
Maybe. But the best thing, I have the best thing, and I have the thing I think you might like.
Okay.
Maybe not. I have an exciting thing. I have a funny thing and okay, the Canadiens, the Montreal Canadiens won. They're a hockey team. They had a guy named Lorne Gump Worsley.
Oh, jeez.
Gump Worsley.
That's a name.
Yeah. He was born and raised in Montreal, Quebec, and he was given a name Gump because his friends thought he looked like the comic strip character Andy Gump.
I have no clue what that is. It must be Canadian.
That comic strip went from like the 20s to the 50s. So like, it was done before we were. But you can look it up online. He does kind of look like him. He retired with a record of 335 wins, 352 losses, and 150 ties. You don't care about any of this.
No.
But his name was Gump Worsley, and he suffered a heart attack on January 22nd, 2007, and died in his home.
I don't care about that.
You love when people die. Okay,
No,
no,
I
I just had to say Gump Worsley.
Okay.
Lorne Gump Worsley. But here's the cool thing.
That does not help the sports by any stretch of the imagination. I just want you to know.
No, here's the thing, though. No, here's what it helps.
It just drags it out.
Yeah, but Gump Worsley, there's two Canadian indie rock bands that have songs dedicated to Gump Worsley. Tribute songs.
All right, what's the next thing? Let's just move on.
No, hold on. There's one other thing.
Oh, no.
The owner of the Canadians then was named Hartland Molson, and he was in the family that has Molson Beer, the Molson Beer family.
Okay.
And here's an exciting tidbit.
I bet it's not.
Did you ever hear of the FLQ?
No.
The Front de Liberation de Quebec, a terrorist organization?
No.
Well, there was a terrorist organization called the FLQ.
Yeah.
And because of Hartland Molson, the owner of the Canadians, his high-profile image made him a prime target for these guys. Mm-hmm. And there was a 1970 October crisis when British diplomat James Cross was kidnapped, and Pierre Laporte, the vice premier of Quebec, was kidnapped and murdered. Hartland Molson's name was found on a terrorist list of future victims.
Oh.
So I made the NHL championship exciting for you.
Okay.
That's exciting and gripping.
Yeah.
And then on Thursday, May 12th, 1966, a little hometown thing for you.
Yeah.
Bush Memorial Stadium opens in St. Louis, Missouri.
Did it? I didn't. I don't think I ever knew how old that place was.
Did you ever go to Bush Memorial Stadium?
Yeah. I saw some Cardinals games, baseball games.
It was the last of the stadiums that were built in the 60s to be torn down, because it wasn't torn down until 2005. Mm-hmm. Just weeks after opening, the new stadium hosted the All-Star Game, followed by a performance by the Beatles.
I can picture that stadium in my head.
Really? You knew where it was so many times?
Yeah.
It served the St. Louis Cardinals for 51 seasons. And like I said, torn down in 2005. The football Cardinals played there.
Yes.
Until they left in 87, and the St. Louis Rams played there for one season. And it opened 4 days after the last baseball game was played at Sportsman's Park. Did you know what that was? That was the original Busch Stadium.
Oh, no. I don't know.
Since 1953.
Okay.
Do you want to know who designed Busch Stadium?
No.
Sverdrup and Parcel.
But you tell me anyway.
It was built by Grun and Billfinger.
Okay.
Do you know what the last event was in the Busch Stadium before it was torn down in 2005?
Was it probably a baseball game?
Yeah, the NLCS on October 19th. Do you know what they used to demolish it?
A wrecking ball?
Yes, a wrecking ball.
All right.
Do you know what's located there now?
No.
In the new Busch Stadium, Busch Stadium 3.
Oh.
But I think it's probably, isn't it like Volvo Busch Stadium or something?
Probably. Well, Busch it's Anheuser-Busch, so
Busch,
it's already
it is. Busch is already a Busch beer.
It's already a brand.
Does everybody just love Busch beer in St. Louis?
Budweiser, yeah.
Like Bud, everything's Budweiser.
Yeah, everything's
Busch
Budweiser.
product. Busch Light.
My cousin and I used to drink Miller Lite just to be obtuse.
Really?
Yeah.
Did it work?
I don't know. Sometimes people would be like, "What?
You can't drink that."
You can't drink Miller Lite."
And then Thursday, June 2nd, 1966. Mm-hmm. Oh, wait a minute. Sorry, I skipped one.
What does Busch beer even taste like? I don't know if I've even ever had a Busch beer.
My grandfather used to always drink Busch. I remember he'd always have Busch beer at his house.
I wonder what it tastes
Busch
like.
beer up north at our cottage, and we would always sip it here and there, and it tasted
awful.
terrible.
Well, when you're a kid, all beer tastes terrible.
I'm sure it tastes just like Bud Light. I never could tell. All the light beers, when I started drinking beers.
What does Budweiser taste like?
Budweiser, actually.
Yeah.
I'm going to get vilified by craft beer nerds like Brandon Wilhelm, but I hadn't had Budweiser. Like, I always drank Bud Light.
Right.
And then I've had a Budweiser here and there, and I remember not liking it. But once I started liking beer, like craft beer, and really liking the taste of it, up north this summer, Uncle Terry is a big Budweiser guy. So he would always buy a 24-pack of Budweiser. So it's not, if you're day drinking on a lake, all week on vacation. You don't want to
drink craft beer.
Yeah, you can't drink craft beer. One. You can drink one, that's it. You can't drink craft beer all day in the lake. So when you're fishing and stuff, you got to have light beer like that. So they had Budweiser, and it was delicious. It wasn't like a craft beer delicious IPA or anything, but it tasted good. It tastes like bananas, kind of. It had some banana.
What?
I tasted a hint of banana. I don't know.
You were
I know I'm
smoking
crazy.
something too, it sounds like.
I guess maybe I'm just so used to trying to taste craft beers and try to guess where the hops and
the
all
flavors
the citra
and all
or whatever.
that stuff.
Yeah, that I tasted like a banana and I enjoyed it. I was like, I'll have this for breakfast from now on.
All right. And that started your downward spiral.
No, I was enjoying having a Budweiser. It was good.
Okay.
It's good. Budweiser's good. I endorse it.
All right.
On to Monday, May 16th, 1966. Bob Dylan's seminal album, Blonde on Blonde, is released in the U.S.
Yes.
Critics often rank this as one of the greatest albums of all time.
It's a good one.
Combining the expertise of Nashville session musicians with a modernist literary sensibility. Mm-hmm. The album's songs have been described as operating on a grand scale musically while featuring lyrics one critic called a unique mixture of the visionary and the colloquial.
His lyrics, to me, are so beautiful and profound, Bob Dylan's.
They really are, and they can, like, he's got a few of them, even though he can't, like, his singing ability isn't good.
Right.
But they sound like, there's something about them that gets your heart. Like, there's a couple, like the times they are changing.
Down the alleyway, cracked in the new day. You know that one?
I don't know, what's that called? You know Rainy Day Women? Here's the number one songs on this one. Rainy Day Women, number 12 and 35. Mm-hmm. Do you know that song?
Yeah.
That's the one where they're talking about getting stoned. Everybody must get stoned, which I thought it was called that.
Yeah, that's Rainy Day Woman. I know that he doesn't really say that in the song.
I think he does.
Rainy Day Woman.
They stone you in. Oh, they don't say Rainy Day Women?
That's what I'm saying. I don't know if you
stone you in the street.
When you're trying to go home.
And I Want You was the other top one.
I know that one.
Just Like a Woman.
I know that one.
Visions of Johanna were the
I don't know if I know that last
biggest song. So, yeah, I think I know most of them. I'm not a big Dylan guy, so I know some of them. And
I like Subterranean Homesick Blues and The Times They Are a Changin' and
Subcutaneous Funyuns.
Blowing in the Wind. Those are some good ones.
That's probably.
Plus, he was such a good songwriter. He wrote like so many other artists' stuff.
Yeah, this is like his 5th or 6th album or something. Mm-hmm. Anyway, yeah, it was a big deal. So that came out, and then Thursday, June 6th, 1966, Surveyor 1 lands in Oceanus Procellarum on the moon, becoming the first U.S. spacecraft to soft land on another planet.
The first U.S. spacecraft to soft land on another planet?
Mm-hmm.
So this is the moon landing?
This is the Surveyor 1. There's no people on it.
Oh, okay. All right. So it's just like a satellite? Is that what you said?
It's a spacecraft.
Of some sort. Okay.
The Surveyor 1, the Surveyor program. I
thought that Russians beat us to the moon.
The first U.S. spacecraft to soft land on another planet.
Okay.
U.S. It's not Russia.
But the moon isn't considered a planet. It's a satellite.
It's a planet other than the Earth, I guess. I don't know. That's what it says. That's what it says on Wikipedia.
Okay.
I didn't look up anything else. No, I think it's considered another planetary field or something. I don't know.
Okay. All right. What's next?
There's got to be a reason they said it like that.
You're right, honey.
June 6th, 1966, civil rights activist James Meredith, remember him? From a previous episode, he was the first guy to go to University of Mississippi. Oh, okay. And the U.S. Marshals had to escort him. Yep. He was shot while trying to march across Mississippi. Ugh. He planned a solo 220-mile march against fear from Memphis, Tennessee to Jackson, Mississippi. Oh. He wanted to highlight continuing racism in the South and encourage voter registration after passage of the Voting Rights Act of 65. And he did not want major civil rights organizations involved. Yeah. So he did it just with individuals. And the second day, he was shot by a white gunman and suffered numerous wounds. But he didn't die. Oh. He's still alive.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Holy
Isn't that crazy?
Crap.
Yeah.
That is crazy.
I thought for sure he'd be dead. I mean, just saw this. But I found this cool... let me see. After he got shot, he went to the hospital, of course, and leaders of major organizations vowed to complete the march in his name after he was taken to the hospital. And while he was recovering, more people from across the country became involved as marchers, and then he rejoined the march.
He did?
Yeah. And when he and other leaders entered Jackson on June 26th, they were leading an estimated 15,000 marchers. Wow, it was the largest civil rights march in Mississippi.
Holy crap.
During the course of it, more than 4,000 African Americans had registered to vote, and the march was a catalyst to continued community organizing and additional registration. But I found on SmithsonianMag.com an article about a photographer that took, because there's some iconic photos. If you Google this, there's an iconic photo. One that stands out more than all of them is one of James Meredith just lying there injured after being shot.
Yeah.
Like he's just lying there in pain and nobody's around him at all. And he's just like, dumbfounded. Like, what the hell?
Why isn't anybody around him at
Well,
all?
yeah, I don't know. The guy who took the picture was a 26-year-old cub photographer, Jack Thornell. And on SmithsonianMag.com, he just in this article he describes what happened. He was sitting in a parked car with a colleague from another journalism company waiting to get pics of the march when all of a sudden a man started shouting, "I just want James Meredith!" And the shotgun blast rang out across the highway, striking Meredith in the head, neck, back, and legs. So Thornell, the photographer, jumped out of the vehicle and started clicking away, taking 2 rolls of pictures with his pair of cameras. He then drove back to Memphis in a panic, convinced he would be fired for failing to photograph both the assailant and the victim. Meanwhile, minutes passed before an ambulance reached Meredith, who lay in the road alone.
He didn't go get police or
Yeah,
anything?
Meredith, no, I guess not. He just took off. And then Meredith laid in the road alone, and Meredith remembered shouting, "Isn't anyone going to help me?" Like he's just
What
shot.
happened?
And
What about
nobody,
the other marchers?
I guess they weren't. I don't know. I don't know if they were all just panicked or people just spread. You know how when shots are fired,
Yeah, people just run.
scatter. Maybe of the many photographs that Thornell made of the incident, one shows the fallen man Meredith on the dusty Highway 51, screaming in agony, and that's the one I'm talking about. It was published in newspapers and magazines nationwide,
Did they
and
get
went
it?
on to win a Pulitzer Prize.
Did he take a picture of the assailant?
I'm about to tell you.
Oh. Yes.
Oh, so the image they did take, they say, is famous for suggesting the very pain and frustration of being black in the South, and people couldn't believe it when it was printed in newspapers and on TV, and people finally realized what was actually happening in the South.
Yeah.
Said Thornell, who took these pictures, who was 65 at the time of this article, which was I think 2005 or something.
Okay.
And he was retired. He said one lasting regret about the day was that he didn't put his camera down to help Meredith. As it happens, Thornell took one picture of the incident in which the gunman can be seen, but it turns out it wasn't needed for evidence because the unemployed hardware clerk from Memphis named Aubrey James Norville, who did it, was apprehended at the scene of the shooting and pled guilty before the case went to trial.
Okay.
And he served 18 months of a 5-year prison sentence and then dropped out of sight.
Of course. Great.
Yeah. And he lived in Memphis when they printed this, but I think he was 79 in like 2005. So
You know, Mississippi could use another civil rights march, I think.
yeah,
I mean,
you want
it's
to do
a
one?
sad thing. It's a sad state of affairs, I think, down there.
Maybe it's all better.
I know.
Maybe it's fixed.
I'm not sure
But
about that.
here's the crazy thing. James Meredith graduated from Columbia Law School. Mm-hmm. He ran for Congress unsuccessfully in New York and Mississippi. Worked as a stockbroker, professor, and writer. Then, in the late 1980s, he shocked many people when he joined the staff of ultra-conservative North Carolina Senator Jesse Helms.
What?
And endorsed former KKK leader David Duke's campaign to become governor of Louisiana.
Why would he do that?
Meredith, still fiery at age 71, defends those choices, saying he was monitoring the enemy.
What?
Married with 5 children, 5 grandchildren, Meredith lives in Jackson and still occasionally addresses groups and civil rights issues. Yeah, isn't that crazy?
That is crazy.
Yeah, that's
Because he endorsed him. Why would you do that? I mean,
a KKK member. I don't get
Yeah.
it. Yeah.
maybe he lost it a little bit.
Yeah, people get older and go through things and
Yeah.
go nuts. And then on Wednesday, June 8th, 1966, Topeka, Kansas was devastated by a tornado
Ooh.
that registers as an F5 on the Fujita scale.
Ooh.
The first tornado to exceed $100 million in damages.
Holy shit.
16 people were killed, hundreds more injured, and thousands of homes damaged and destroyed.
I'm surprised only 16 people were killed.
Yeah, it is amazing. Washburn University was destroyed
Demolished.
completely,
Wow.
and there's a website. It's ktwu.washburn.edu, and there's a whole website on there about the devastation stories from people of that
living through
that tornado.
Really?
And I'll just tell you a couple of them.
Yeah.
Here's a couple of the people that talk about it.
Okay.
Don Wright says, My office was in the east wing of the ground floor in Morgan Hall. A brick was blown through the window of my office without shattering the glass, and it hit against the wall and fell on the desk of my secretary. Had she been at her desk, it would have hit her in the back of the head.
Wait a minute.
I still have the brick.
It went through the wall without shattering the glass?
Yeah.
So it just punctured a hole in the window?
Apparently.
That's bizarre.
Yeah, he still has the brick.
I know tornadoes can do weird fucking things, but...
Yeah, he said, when I went to Washburn the next day, although I had been a professor there for 17 years, it was very difficult for me to know where I was on the campus. The landmarks, buildings, and trees were all gone. Strange as it may seem, there was a slight good resulting from the tornado. It destroyed a number of old buildings that were replaced with new, more up-to-date ones, he said.
Well, there's some looking on the bright side, isn't it?
That's the bright side. They did say that a lot of people said that it was amazing that the tragedy brings out the best in people, and that cleanup began immediately, and almost everybody just came together and helped each other.
Oh, that's
that
nice.
really is how that does happen. Here's one that who says that? This is from Leon Taylor. I was in the basement of Carnegie attending the bar review class when the sirens went off. About 15 or 20 of us went outside for a look-see. I remember that it was incredibly still, which was surprising since it had been storming so hard. Suddenly, somebody yelled and pointed, and we could see this huge black funnel. It looked like it was some distance away. Then it seemed to change direction and head straight for us. I could see lots of paper and boxes floating on the edge of it. I guess I was mesmerized by the majesty and the power of it. Everyone else went to the basement, but I stayed on the law school steps and just watched it come closer. The funnel must have hit a gas pump or something because there was an explosion in the cloud.
Oh my
I could
God.
see roofs and other debris flying around. Mostly I remember the noise. It sounded like 10,000 freight trains.
Yep.
The funnel was almost on me when I came to my senses and ran back into the basement. Just as I got to the bottom of the stairs, the funnel hits the building. A heavy Coke machine was simply picked up and carried off. Windows were sucked in and glass flew everywhere, and some fragments hit me in the back and legs. I grabbed hold of the first solid thing I could find and held on firmly. The whole thing was over in a matter of seconds. It got real quiet except for the tinkling of glass. I can remember choking and sputtering from the huge clouds of dust from the broken masonry.
Oh, my God.
Several of us climbed a basement window, and the extent of the damage was breathtaking. Trees were uprooted, and electric lines had broken loose and were popping. In the parking area just north of Crane Observatory, cars had been picked up and piled together. About 30 yards away from this pile was my old 58 Plymouth in splendid isolation. It was completely intact, no broken windows.
Yeah.
Sitting in the driver's seat was a brick from the smokestack that got demolished.
Yeah, that's so
Leon
crazy,
Taylor,
that
class
stuff
of
like
66.
that. Like it
Weird
picks up
things
certain
happen, yeah.
things and leaves other things completely untouched. There was a podcast I listened to about a pilot or a skydiver who got caught in a tornado and lived.
Oh my gosh.
And he was in the middle of it. And he
what are
said
the chances of that?
He said it looks like little thunderstorms. Like the cloud is spinning.
Yeah.
But inside the cloud that surrounded him, there was all this lightning.
Wow.
Yeah, and
What?
it was crazy. Yeah.
What a weird thing. Yeah. The back to that thing about where everybody came together. We lived in Ohio during a big tornado that leveled a local school, and it was the same thing. We did charity events and stuff to bring in, and everybody came together. But I did hear a story from that one. We were in the Toledo area, which is by Detroit, sort of west, and we heard a story of somebody whose wallet went up in the tornado, and they found one of his credit cards
Yeah.
in Cleveland, which was like a
my
2-hour
God.
drive.
Yeah.
Like 2.5 hour drive. Like
That's
it was
crazy.
found. Yeah.
Yeah. It's insane.
It's crazy to think about.
Well,
If we could
it's
just figure out
creepy.
how to get tornadoes to help us travel.
Yeah, really.
You know,
I'm
save
going
on
to take the
flights.
next tornado. I'll be
Yeah.
there.
We got another tornado coming in
be
about
there
15
about
minutes.
March.
Yeah. Anyway, I thought that was interesting to get some stories.
Yeah,
of
I like
and
that. That was cool.
It's fun to find things like that.
Yep.
And then June 13th, 1966, was the Miranda versus Arizona case, the
Oh,
Supreme Court of
yeah.
the United States rules that police must inform
People of their rights.
the suspects of the Miranda rights before questioning. Are you familiar with this case, the Miranda rights case?
So very vaguely, like there was a lot of police abuse of power, I think, that was going on.
Well, I was just interested in, I mean, I think we all know what it is, like the
You're
Miranda
the right
rights.
to remain silent, the right to an attorney, the right to...
Right. So
yeah.
before this, apparently people didn't know their rights, and I think there was probably a lot of police, like, sign this piece of paper and bullying people into it and
Right.
confessions and
Yeah.
stuff, which they still do.
Right.
But I was interested in finding out, like, what was the actual case that changed
Yeah.
this, that became Miranda rights.
That's right.
And it was a guy named Ernesto Miranda who was arrested by the Phoenix Police Department
Yeah.
based on circumstantial evidence linking him to the kidnapping and rape of an 18-year-old woman 10 days earlier.
Okay.
And so after hours of interrogation by police, he signed a confession on forms that included the type statement, "I do hereby swear that I make this statement voluntarily and of my own free will with no threats, coercion, or promises of immunity, and with full knowledge of my legal rights, understanding any statement I make may be used against me." So they had like a statement already printed that they had people do. But at this time, at no time was he told of his right to counsel before they gave him that form. And so at trial, when prosecutors offered Miranda's written confession as evidence, his court-appointed lawyer, Alvin Moore, objected because of these facts, that he was never offered a lawyer. But his objection was overruled, and based on this,
Why?
based on the confession and other evidence, apparently, they had other evidence that he did do it. I think he probably did it. Like, I do think he did it, but it's interesting to me that this came about
Because
of somebody who actually did commit a crime.
Right.
But it, anyway, he was convicted of rape and kidnapping and sentenced to 20 to 30 years of imprisonment on each charge, with sentences to run concurrently. But he filed an appeal, and I think that was denied. It went all the way up to Supreme Court. And attorney John Paul Frank, former law clerk to Justice Hugo Black, represented Miranda in his appeal to the U.S. Supreme Court. And this is the day. This is when June 13th, 1966, is when the Supreme Court issued a 5-4 decision in Miranda's favor that overturned his conviction and remanded his case back to Arizona for retrial.
Oh.
So, and that's when they decided this needs to be a thing now, where
You say it.
you say that and you make sure they can get it. They don't have to talk. You know,
Yeah.
they can have a right to a lawyer. Then I was just curious as, okay, so what happened? Was he guilty? Did he get retried? And did he?
Yeah.
Or was a case where he was innocent? But he was retried in 1967 after the original case was thrown out. And this time the prosecution, instead of using the confession, introduced other evidence and called witnesses. One witness was Twyla Hoffman, a woman with whom Miranda was living with at the time of the offense. She testified that he had told her of committing the crime. And so he was convicted in 1967 again and sentenced to serve 20 to 30 years. So I just thought it was funny that the actual case that gave victims or, people on cases more rights was actually guilty. Anyway.
A guilty person. Okay.
Yeah, and so... and then here's how this Miranda guy died. He was stabbed to death during an argument in a bar in 1976, and a suspect was arrested, but that suspect, unlike Miranda, exercised his right to remain silent. With no evidence against him, he was released.
Oh my God, you're kidding.
Yes. So the Miranda rights actually happened to him, like his murderer.
In his own murder.
Saved his murderer.
That's funny.
How crazy is that?
That's crazy.
That's crazy. You couldn't even make that up.
No.
That's why it's clear that we're living in a matrix.
All right, what's next?
Thursday, June 30th, 1966, the National Organization for Women is founded in Washington, D.C.
All right.
Are you familiar with NOW?
Yes.
You are? Are you part of it?
Off and on.
Do you know that it was founded by 28 women?
No.
Yep. And those women were Ada
No, we're
Allness,
not naming
Mary
all those
Evelyn
people.
Benbow, Jean Boyer,
Come on.
Shirley Chisholm. You don't like Shirley Chisholm? You're racist. Okay, July 4th, Monday, July 4th, 1966, President Lyndon B. Johnson signs the Freedom of Information Act,
Okay.
which went into effect the following year. Are you familiar with that act?
Yes.
What's that do with?
It's like...
Just give us an overview of it.
It's well, I didn't look it up or anything, but from what I remember, you have the right to anything that's on public record. you have a right to request that information. So if you're trying to defend yourself, if you are convicted of a crime.
Boring. I think you're right, though.
Yeah.
I have a bunch of stuff on it, but I figured I'd let you, because Brent Nelson wants to hear your voice right now.
I know, see?
And then that brings us to July 13th, 1966, known in many circles as the greatest day in American history because Gerald Edward Levert was born, and you have something
Who's
on
Gerald Edward Levert?
You take that back. If I could reach you, I would slap your face.
What?
And it wouldn't be domestic abuse because it would be Levert abuse. For you not knowing who Levert is. From the band Levert?
I don't know what you're talking about.
Levert? You've never heard of Levert?
No.
I can't continue this marriage
All right.
or this podcast. He's one of the greatest R&B singers of all time. Born in Shaker Heights, Ohio. He is the son of OJ's frontman, Eddie Levert. And he started a band with his brother, the other Levert, Sean Levert, and friend Mark Gordon.
You finished?
Gordon, sorry.
Okay.
And he was also in the supergroup LSG with Keith Sweat and Johnny Gill.
This is what Brent Nelson has a beef with.
I just can't believe you don't know who Levert is. Gerald Levert.
We're done with this part of the topic.
Okay, so what happened on Gerald Levert's birthday?
Okay, so I'm going to go back a little bit to start.
Oh, before Gerald Levert's birthday?
Yes.
Okay.
I am going to talk about murderer Richard Speck.
The murder of Richard Speck?
Murderer Richard Speck.
Oh, Richard Speck is the murderer.
Is a murderer.
Not the murder of Richard Speck. No. I don't know who Richard Speck is, but I assume you are going to enlighten us with your horrible rapey story.
Yes, I am. Okay, so Richard Benjamin Speck was born on December 6, 1941.
Oh, December 6, 1941, the same day that President Roosevelt wrote a personal appeal to Emperor Hirohito to avoid war between the U.S. and Japan.
How'd that turn out?
The next day, Pearl Harbor happened, so not good.
Nope. So he was born in the small city of Monmouth, Illinois.
Monmouth, Illinois, y'all.
To two religious parents who were teetotalers.
They were what?
Teetotalers.
Forgive my ignorance.
They didn't drink alcohol.
Oh, well, that doesn't mix with my lifestyle.
So he was the seventh of 8 children.
Ooh. Seventh son?
Seventh son.
Wow.
Yep.
6 boys before him?
Yeah, that's what. I don't know if they're boys.
Oh,
seventh son. I don't know.
Seventh son of a seventh son. Haven't you heard that whole thing? It's like a thing.
Oh, it is.
I don't know. Never mind. Go ahead.
So they moved.
I apologize, Brent.
They moved to Monmouth shortly after Richard was born, and his earliest years seemed unremarkable. But then tragedy struck.
Uh-oh.
First, Richard's beloved father passed away of a heart attack in 1947.
That's sad. That's sad when you lose. And he was only 6?
Yeah. Then his older brother Robert died in a car wreck in 1952.
Oh, these are damaging things. These can damage your psyche, these things.
They struck him very hard, and the deaths struck Richard very hard. And to make things worse, his new stepfather, she gets remarried.
This guy was probably a jerk.
He was a traveling salesman. He had a long criminal record. He would drink and verbally abuse everybody in the family.
That's the thing. Why do traveling salesmen always drink and verbally abuse everyone?
I don't think is there traveling salesmen anymore?
Well, I'm sure there's salesmen that travel.
But they're not like, door to door.
Like, what do you think of traveling salesmen?
Boy, that career really went down the tubes, didn't it?
Salesman. Now we're to the point if somebody comes to the door, I call the police.
I know, right?
Just saying hello
People
or
have
delivering a chicken.
Video doorbells.
Yeah.
Pretty soon they're going to pepper spray right when you walk up the door.
If you go to anyone's door in our neighborhood, it is instantly posted on the neighborhood app.
Yeah,
why is this person in my door? This person's a terrorist. There's something wrong. I think this is odd. They were just at the wrong door.
It's absolutely.
Yeah.
So anyway, he had a taste for trouble. He had a lengthy criminal record that included forgery and several arrests for drunk driving.
In his defense, trouble is delicious. He had a taste for it.
He was the polar opposite of Speck's sober, hardworking, and now deceased father. Well, with his new family, Speck moved to East Dallas, Texas.
East Dallas.
Who
did he move there with?
His family.
Oh,
his stepfather and
mother. Oh, that whole family moved.
Yes,
with
they
the
all
stepfather,
moved.
with the traveling salesman guy.
And they bounced from house to house, living in many of the poorer neighborhoods of the city.
Man, boy, his life just took a turn. If his dad didn't die, that wouldn't have happened.
So he was a poor student throughout school. He refused to wear the glasses that he needed and would not speak in class due to anxiety.
I ain't wearing his glasses and I ain't saying shit.
By 1953, the 12-year-old Speck began drinking.
12-year-old started
Yes.
drinking? I confess, I drank when I was 12 at my mom's wedding. She got remarried when I was 12, and I was in the wedding, and they served all the groomsmen champagne. So
you got to drink
I
it?
drank it.
Did you get drunk?
I got drunk at my mom's
Did
wedding
you
when
get
I was
drunk?
12.
Were you drunk?
That's what they say. That's what they tell me.
Oh. So at age 15, he was drunk nearly every day
I was on
and
the
failing
dance
at
floor.
school.
Oh, he was drunk every day. I only got drunk one time at my mom's wedding, and I tore up the dance floor. And that's when my dancing career began. But back
Yeah.
to Richard Speck, who was just an alcoholic at 12. But
Yes.
that was probably normal in the 60s, right? For
No, I
12-year-olds?
would say it would be the opposite. I'd say it would be more normal now because back then kids didn't.
Didn't they smoke everybody smoked cigarettes?
Yeah, they all smoked cigarettes. That's true. I don't know. Maybe it was.
Who knows?
So
I mean, we've all these stories we've had over the 60s, everybody leaves their kids unattended at the beach.
Yes,
and
it's
stuff,
true.
and children.
Yeah, that's
So
true.
I'm sure drinking was happening with everybody.
in January 1958, just after his 16th birthday, he dropped out of high school altogether.
Man, this guy's not going down a good path.
He
Hope
held,
he doesn't murder anyone.
he held a number of regular jobs and even got married after he
Ooh.
impregnated a 15-year-old girl he had met at the
Gross.
Texas State Fair.
What? That's not ideal.
No,
For anyone.
no. And but he did continue to run into trouble with the law.
All right.
He tattooed "Born to Raise Hell" on his arm.
That's a nice tattoo. I approve of that. That's a good decision.
Yep.
I want that tattoo.
He would be arrested 41 times before the age of 24.
Whoa.
Yeah. Speck's wife, Shirley Malone, reportedly lived in fear of him. Malone said Speck would often rape her at knife point and demanded sex 4 to 5 times a day from her.
That is a lot of sex. Now, gross.
Gross.
I don't know. Forget it.
His probation officer once said, when Speck is drinking, he will fight or threaten anybody, as long as he has a knife or gun. When he's sober or unarmed, he couldn't face down a mouse.
Wait a minute.
What?
Okay. Sorry. So we still haven't gotten to Levert's birthday.
No.
Okay.
So this guy, he's real creepy looking. He's real pockmarked skin.
What's his
And
name?
Richard Speck.
Richard Speck. So I'm going to take a pause for our listeners to get some, pack another bowl of weed or
Yep.
get another cookie from the cabinet or Richard Speck. I'm going to just Google him because I want to see what he looks like. If you're in your car,
Yeah.
go ahead and stop, get out
So
and
he-
stretch your legs. Oh, yeah, he's a pretty creepy looking guy.
He became a career criminal, and his arrests included theft, robbery, fraud, and assault.
Okay. Theft, robbery, and assault. Theft, robbery, what?
Fraud.
Fraud and assault. Okay.
In 1965, he attacked a woman in the parking lot of her apartment building with a 17-inch carving knife.
Yikes.
Though she escaped, he was arrested and given a 16-month sentence. He was
That's it.
ultimately released after 6 months due to an error.
See, that's the whole thing with this stuff. Like, there's all these stories of these
Yep.
people who just get arrested 45 times
I
and they
know.
just keep getting out.
Especially
While-
violent criminals.
violent criminal. And then you hear about these ones people who are just do little drug offenses.
I know,
And they're
and
in
then-
jail for 30
Yep,
years.
that's
Like,
right.
But they're usually black people. It's like
That's true.
it's just
Or poor.
based on race or poor. Well, this guy was probably poor.
Yeah, he was.
But it's really based on race.
Yeah,
It's terrible.
that's true.
It's just I'm in a moment like we're like doing all this research and finding these stories. It's like when you're a kid, you realize Santa Claus doesn't exist. You're like
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
shocked at how terrible the world is. And then later you realize we live in a country where everything's based on rich white people getting everything
That's
and everyone
true.
else is
Yep.
screwed and nothing's fair.
Nothing's fair.
I mean, the whole court system's
and
based
they
on
make
money.
the poor, and they make the two sides in the poor fight against each other, so we won't all band together and
Yeah.
get rid of those assholes.
Yeah, and they do it on purpose. And
They
that's
do.
just this thing we're in. This is a world we're in.
And we're not smart enough to figure it out and to stop.
Yeah, collectively
picking
we
with each
can't. We
other.
all just we all want ours. We're like these rats.
Yes. So anyway,
It's a rat race.
he
Anyway, sorry for the downer, everybody.
That's
Back
right.
to the rapes.
fearing for her life, Speck's wife filed for divorce and took full custody of their child.
Good for her. That's hard to do in this day and age.
According to the book The Crime of the Century, Richard Speck and the Murders That Shocked a Nation.
You should buy that at your local bookstore.
Speck's violence only escalated from here on out.
Uh-oh.
After moving back to Monmouth to live with his sister, he stabbed a man in a bar fight.
Monmouth, Illinois?
Yeah.
Did you just say what bar?
Stole a car and robbed a grocery store, then burgled, tortured, and raped a 65-year-old woman in her home.
That poor lady was just minding her own business, probably.
Probably.
She probably didn't do anything wrong.
She might have been gabbing with a neighbor.
Maybe that is the punishment for gabbing with a neighbor. Maybe it's karma.
No, we're not saying that.
No, it's not karma? Okay.
No, that's bad. That's
no,
terrible.
that's bad. We shouldn't say that.
Don't say that. All right, on April 13th, 1966.
April 13th, 1966?
Yes.
Oh, the same day that Lyndon Johnson signed the 1966 Uniform Time Act.
Okay.
Remember we talked about that and you got all
Daylight
mad?
Savings
Daylight
Time.
Savings. But I looked in more than this. You got mad last time because you hate
Daylight Savings Time.
Daylight Savings Time. But what this did before that happened,
Yeah.
all this did was set a common date for it to happen. It was the last Sunday in April for all states in the U.S. to set their clocks forward 1 hour, beginning on April 29th of 67, and set clocks forward 1 hour on the last Sunday in October. Because before that, 18 states observed daylight savings time.
Yeah.
14 switched time zones rather than changing their clocks. And the other 18 left the option up to their local governments.
Oh, Jesus.
So it was just a different time everywhere, all the time.
Oh, my God.
It was
How
just
did
a
anybody
mess.
conduct business at all, ever?
Yeah. So I think we should be happy that LBJ, that might be the best
at
thing of
least
the Uniform Time Act.
That's
Like,
probably the best thing he did.
let's all do the same thing.
Yeah.
Also, on that same day,
Yeah.
William Olson, a 24-year-old American Peace Corps volunteer and teacher from Spencer, New York, was eaten by a crocodile.
What?
While he and 5 other Corps members were swimming in the Barrow River in Gambella, Ethiopia.
Oh, my God.
Olson, whose remains were recovered only after the crocodile was killed and opened up, was the first Corps volunteer to die in Ethiopia and the first to be killed by an animal.
Oh, my God, that's terrifying.
Also on NBC, Bob Hope did a comedy special.
Probably.
Starring Phyllis Diller.
Okay, yes, on that date, Mary Kay Pierce was found dead behind the bar where she worked. Speck was questioned by police about the murder, but feigned illness, promising to return to answer questions on April 19th.
That's a great way to get out of a murder.
Yep. When he didn't show, the police went to the Christie Hotel where he was living, which is real classy.
Anybody living in a
Living in a
hotel is
hotel.
usually probably not doing well in their life.
Yes. Speck was gone, but police searched his room and found items from local burglaries, including jewelry belonging to 65-year-old Mrs. Virgil Harris, who had been held at knife point, robbed, and raped that same month.
Wait, is that the lady
Yes.
who we said deserved it because
Yes.
of her
Yes.
gabbing?
Yes. By July of that year, Speck had outstayed his welcome and attempted to get a job on a ship with the National Maritime Union.
Oh, I hope he got that job on the ship.
So he did on July 13th.
Oh, July 13th, 1966. Oh, you mean same day that Gerald Levert was born?
All right.
No, Gerald Levert was an American singer, songwriter,
Stop
producer,
it.
and actor.
Okay. Yes. After receiving an assignment, he arrived at the ship only to find his position had been given to someone else.
Oh,
So this really pissed him off.
We got to think, this guy's furious. He's already a horrible murderer and rapist. Also,
Yeah.
Levert is being born.
So he goes off into has like a drinking bender in the neighborhood.
Oh, no. This is not going to end well, I don't think.
On his binge, Speck met Ella Mae Hooper, who was a 53-year-old woman who had spent the day drinking at the same taverns as he was.
While Levert was being born.
Yes. He then held her up at knife point. He brought her to his room where he raped her and stole her mail-order .22 caliber Rom pistol.
Whoa.
Armed now, which is
Man,
not good.
I don't like all this rape.
I know. He set out onto the streets of Southside Chicago. After a mile, he came across a townhouse that was functioning as a dormitory for 9 student nurses at the South Chicago Community Hospital.
Oh, boy. This ain't going to go well.
Speck broke in through the window of the townhouse around 11 p.m. and made his way to the bedrooms.
No, poor nurses. I hope there's a tough-ass male nurse that beats his ass.
He knocked first on
Or
the
a
door.
tough-ass female nurse that beats his ass.
Could be.
Like Bonnie Jean Hostetter, who's my grandma's former neighbor, who's
All right.
a tough-ass nurse.
He knocked first on the door of Filipina exchange student nurse Corazon Amoro, 23.
Corazon, you can do this.
And at gunpoint, he herded her and her fellow exchange students from the Philippines, Merlita Gargulo, 23, and Valentina Payson, 23, into the next room
Wait, let me guess. They all unite and become Voltron and destroy him?
where American students Patricia Matusek, 20, Pamela Wilkening, 20, and Nina Jo Schmale, 24, were sleeping.
Come on, Nina Jo Schmale, save the day.
Speck then woke up the Americans and tied all 6 girls' wrists behind their backs with strips of torn bed sheets.
Man, see, now, if those girls just were empowered enough to gang together, 6 of them, and only one crappy guy. But he probably has a gun or a knife or something.
Amaro, the lone survivor of the encounter, later said, quote, "The American girls told us we more or less had to trust him. Maybe if we were calm and quiet, he will be too. He has been talking to us all, and he seems calm enough, and that is a good sign." Thinking that they may be able to save themselves, one of the women asked Speck what he wanted. His answer was to go to New Orleans. So each of the women gave the intruder what money they had for a ticket to New Orleans.
I think it's pronounced Narlands, but still, don't be calm and quiet. Fight this guy. They could have kicked his ass. Where's the women power?
For a brief moment, it seemed that they may have saved their own lives, until a 9th nurse, Gloria Jean Davy, arrived home after her date.
Yep.
Speck panicked and tied up each of the women, then took his first victim, Pamela Wilkening, out of the room.
Oh, no.
Instead, Speck led them one by one out of the room and then stabbed or strangled each of the women to death.
Those poor women, if they would have just banded together.
Well, there was... So, Amaro, the first one that he saw,
Yeah.
she, in all the mayhem, somehow gets down on the floor and rolls under the bed,
Really?
up against the wall.
And he forgets about her?
And he forgets about her. Yes.
That's how she survived?
That's how she survived, yes.
Smart girl.
She said that none of her friends screamed as they were being led from the room, but she later heard their muffled cries.
Oh, my gosh. What a tragic, awful thing to talk about.
In the midst of this carnage, 2 other student nurses who lived in the dormitory arrived home. First came Suzanne Ferris, 21, who Speck stabbed to death in the upstairs hallway as she was walking into her room. And the second was Marianne Jordan, 20, who Speck also stabbed to death upon her entry to the house.
We're losing a lot of valuable nursing people.
The final of these later arrivals was Gloria Jean Davy. We already said that she was dropped off. She was the only one of the women that Richard Speck raped and sexually brutalized before strangling her.
Gross.
Likely because of these late arrivals, Speck must have lost count of how many women. And that's what I told you about that
Yeah,
part.
he probably forgot.
So, she stayed under the bed until 6 a.m. because she was so
Oh,
terrified.
I would too, bro. I would too.
And then she bolts out from under the bed and runs to the nearest window and opens it up.
Wouldn't you, wait, before we get to this, if you're under the bed till 6 a.m., don't you think, like, you would want to stay there? You want to make sure it's gone. Like,
right.
if you have to poop or pee, you just poop and pee.
I guess.
Under that bed, right?
I don't know if you could. Maybe you
can't poop and pee when you're panicked like this?
I don't
or do you
think.
only poop and pee all the time?
I think I do. I do most times when
you
I'm
poop and pee.
scared.
When you're scared, you poop and pee.
Right where I'm sitting.
Oh, I noticed there was a stink bug in the house yesterday flying around. You pooped and peed everywhere.
I know I did because I was so scared of it.
Mopping the floor for hours.
All right, so she opens the window and she starts screaming, "They're all dead. My friends are all dead. Oh, God, I'm the only one alive."
Oh, my gosh.
So then...
And they're all just, like, laying around all over. The dead bodies are all over the house?
Well...
You can only assume.
Yeah, and so she provides investigators with a description of the killer.
Yeah.
They knew he was tall, maybe 6
Ugly.
feet in height, blonde, and he had
a
deep Southern accent, too.
Oh, he
which
did. I
made
didn't
him
know
stick
that.
out. And the way he's, his pockmarked skin and everything that made him stand out
he
in
looks
Chicago.
he looks like the bad guy in Grease. Remember that guy?
Yes, he does. He's grosser, though. So people who encountered him remembered him. And this assisted investigators to eventually capturing him.
People that, what did you say? Who
People
remember?
who encountered him tended to remember him.
Okay. So when
Because
they
he was
described
stuck
him, they're
out.
like, oh, I saw that guy.
Yeah.
Oh, that friggin' asshole with the pockmarked skin?
So he had found a low-rent hotel that had cell-like rooms for the patrons who were mostly drunks, drug addicts, or insane.
Oh, boy.
When-
Put all those groups together.
Yeah, in a hotel. When he discovered police, he knew his identity. When he discovered police knew his identity, he decided to take his life by cutting his wrists and inner elbow with jagged glass.
Oh, God.
But they found him, and they took him to the hospital. And it was there that first-year resident Leroy Smith recognized who he was and called the police.
Oh.
Like the hotel people had found him
Yeah.
when he didn't answer.
It's amazing that guy recognized him.
So he was placed on trial for the murders after a panel of psychiatrists chosen by both his defense and his prosecution judged him competent to do so.
Yeah.
During his trial, which began on April 3rd, 1967...
Oh, April 3rd, 1967, the same day that Captain Nice was on TV?
Oh,
You know what Captain Nice was?
No idea.
Starring William Daniels, that guy from St. Elsewhere, that old man with a mustache from St. Elsewhere.
Uh-huh.
He plays Carter Nash, who was a chemist in the police department who discovered a liquid which could turn him into Captain Nice. an odd sort of superhero, very shy and dominated by his mother.
That's the superhero?
Captain Nice flew, though he feared heights, in his tattered leotards, fighting bad guys because his mother told him to do so.
Well, that's kind of funny, actually.
Yeah, that was a show that was on. I want to see it.
I know. It could be good. Okay.
That was on TV.
He was... Yes, that was on his trial. He claimed to have no recollection of the murders, something that did not bother the prosecution as they already had an eyewitness ready to identify him.
Boom.
Amaro took the witness stand for the trial.
So the lady was under the bed.
Yeah, and in a dramatic moment stood directly in front of Richard Speck, pointed at him, almost touching his chest, and said, "This is the man."
Oh, man.
The prosecution also found fingerprints matching Speck at the scene of the crime.
You know, that poor woman, like, it'd be interesting to do the research on what happened to her. Like, did she live an okay life, or was she haunted by this forever? PTSD? Can you imagine?
PTSD from something.
How are you doing? Oh, did you know that our friend witnessed 22 murders or whatever?
Yeah,
and had to lay down on the bed till 6 a.m. and poop and pee all over herself.
So the trial was a national sensation. It was the first time. It was one of the first times in the 20th century, American history, that someone had killed so many people at random.
That's crazy. It would have went viral. Can you imagine today?
Yes. Yep.
It would have gone viral.
But today, it's not that big of a deal, unfortunately.
No, I think it is. Something like
I don't
this.
know.
I don't think this could happen now.
I don't know. The last school shooting we had, it was very low on my Facebook posts. Like
really?
I
those
scrolled
are
through I
commonplace.
scrolled through Facebook for probably 10 minutes before I realized there was a school shooting, which is a sad state of
That
affairs.
is sad. Well, maybe you shouldn't have been scrolling through Facebook.
Probably not. It probably wasn't 10 minutes.
But I'm just thinking of like with cameras everywhere. Like this guy would have been caught way sooner, don't you think?
Maybe.
Maybe not. I don't know.
So for many at the time, it was seen as the end of an era of innocence, when it was never assumed that someone would kill helpless victims without clear motivation. But then, of course, 2 years later, Charles Manson would end the 60s decade of love for good. After only 45 minutes of deliberation, the jury came back with a guilty verdict for Speck.
Guilty.
He was initially given the death sentence, but this was reduced to life in prison in 1971 when the Supreme Court ruled that people opposed to the death penalty were unconstitutionally excluded from the jury. They wouldn't let people serve on the jury if they were opposed to the death penalty.
Oh.
They used that for jury selection.
Yeah, that's kind of weird.
No, that's bad. That's bad. You can't judge somebody.
I know.
You can't have only pro-death penalty people on the jury.
I know. Then
it's prejudicial.
Yeah, it seems not.
So Speck served this sentence at the Stateville Correctional Center in Illinois. Throughout his time there, he regularly got caught with drugs and moonshine.
Moonshine's not a bad thing.
He was given the nickname Birdman because he kept a pair of sparrows that had flown into his cell.
That's weird.
In 1996, a bizarre video taken of Speck in 1988 was released to the public by an anonymous attorney.
What?
In the video, Speck, wearing silk panties and white female-like breasts grown using smuggled hormone treatments. So he
grew his own boobs?
Boobs, yes.
Because he smuggled hormone Oh,
yes.
Man. Okay. There's a video of this?
Yes, and he's just wearing silk panties. And he performs oral sex on another inmate while they both do large amounts of cocaine.
Whoa.
And
is this video? Did you watch this video?
Well,
is it on YouTube? I see it right now?
There's another video of him talking about the murders, and he's sitting there smoking a cigarette, and he's sitting in that outfit. You can see that part. You don't see the part where he's having sex with the other inmate. Thank God.
Oh, I want to see that.
But at one point in the video, a prisoner from behind the camera asked Speck why he killed the 8 student nurses.
While he's giving somebody fellatio?
Like it was like after or something, when he's sitting there talking, and he merely replies, "It just wasn't their night," and then he started to laugh.
Whoa, what a creepy guy.
So Richard Speck died on December 5th, 1991, the eve of his 50th birthday, from a heart attack.
He died right before he turned 50?
Yep. And
somebody didn't want him to turn 50. Wait, on that same day, on Fox was Drexel's Class, starring Dabney Coleman as Otis Drexel, a 5th grade teacher at a fictional Grantwood Elementary School in Cedar Bluffs, Iowa. Remember Dabney Coleman in that show?
I don't remember that at all.
And also in A Different World, Whitley throws herself into an art exhibit in order to forget her breakup with Dwayne Wayne. And Kim is furious that Whitley wants to include stereotypical mammy items in the exhibit. Meanwhile, Dwayne Wayne fists Ron.
All right. So, yes, I got my...
It's a different world.
I got my information from allthat'sinteresting.com.
Oh,
Again,
good.
they're always a good...
Credit to allthat'sinteresting.com.
Thoughtco.com.
ThoughtCo?
Yeah, it was a profile of Richard Speck, serial killer by Charles Montaldo article.
Oh.
And then the lineup.com also I got some.
And then the lineup.com. Thank you to those places where we just ripped off their info.
That's
But
right.
that just reminds me, I forgot to look up, again, I meant to look up the weird news of the 66.
Oh, damn it.
12-year-old Beatles superfan Carol Dryden came up with a scheme to meet the Fab Four by mailing herself to them.
No, we didn't talk about that.
She packaged herself inside a box and arranged to have a friend ship it. Addressed to the Beatles, Care Their Fan Club London, but Carol only got as far as the railway station when a clerk noticed the box she was in wobbling back and forth. Inside of it, Carol, overheated and running out of air because she hadn't made any holes in the box, was trying to take off her sweater. Rescued from her confinement, Carol confessed she had given no thought to providing herself fresh air or food.
Oh, my God. That's a 12-year-old for you.
That's a 12-year-old. And then there's two things that happened in June, so I'll just talk about them real quick.
Yeah.
Mrs. Living Corpse, after being buried alive for a week outside of a drive-in theater in Denison, Texas, Lottie Howard married Country Bill White. Both of them were buried alive practitioners.
What?
After she was disinterred, the two left on their honeymoon. However, the marriage didn't last long. 2 years later, she filed for divorce while Country Bill was buried alive in Austin, Texas. A sheriff's deputy dropped the divorce papers down the 6-inch pipe Bill was using for air and food.
What? People
Yep.
purposely bury themselves alive?
Yes, and they have like an advertisement. Lottie Howard, Mrs. Living Corpse, buried alive.
That
Like
is
it's like
bizarre.
it's like a stunt they did, I guess.
Yeah. Oh, whatever.
And this is all on weirduniverse.net. Usually I get these stories and I go do a bunch of research on them to give
Right,
you more
but you
details.
forgot.
But I forgot to do that. And we got another one coming up in August, so I'll do that. But since we're in June. And then
We're in July, actually.
Oh, we're in July, so those are happening in June. But we got Levert being born, and then we got to finish July.
That's right.
So we can start in August. And I just have a couple things that, but this is going to be bad because one of these things might be interesting. But
All right, we'll see.
July 18th,
I'll be the judge of that.
1966, Gemini 10 is launched after docking with an Agena target vehicle. The astronauts then set a world altitude record of 474 miles.
You said docking.
Docking. Monday, do you know what docking is?
Yeah.
Listeners?
All right, let's keep moving. We don't need to.
Monday, July 18th, 1966, I guess it's Huff, H-O-U-G-H, riots break out in Cleveland, Ohio, the city's first race riots.
Oh, wow.
So that's what I think I should have done some research to figure out what that was exactly.
That sounds like a personal introspection.
But
to
race
me.
riots really aren't funny, so maybe we'll just
No.
skip that. And then Thursday, July 28th, 1966, the U.S. announces that a Lockheed U-2 reconnaissance plane has disappeared over Cuba.
Ooh.
And that's, again, there's like a link. I should probably read more about that.
I thought you did all your research.
No, I stopped when we got to your story.
Oh.
And then I've realized that we just kind of finished. So maybe I'll look up stuff for the beginning of the next episode if there's anything interesting. If not, I'll just skip it.
Okay.
And the last thing was Friday, July 29th, 1966. Bob Dylan is injured in a motorcycle accident near his home in Woodstock, New York. He's not seen in public for over a year.
Wow.
Did you know that happened?
No, I did not.
Yeah.
I wonder how he's remained such a, I guess because he's so talented, such a star. Like he never like faded away really.
Well, here's where I kind of beg to differ.
Oh.
I'm not saying he's terrible or anything, but when's the last thing that he did that is great,
Right.
that you think of? The 60s, right?
Right.
Has he
that's true.
done anything since the 60s? Like some people just get
Yeah.
such a status
That they're just there
that
for
they're just still there.
posterity's sake.
Now, when he dies, everybody's going to go nuts. Oh
That's
my
true.
God, we lost a treasure. But did he do anything in the 80s or the 90s? Or
We Are the World, I think, wasn't he?
He was part of We Are the World. I think, wasn't he in the Traveling Wilburys?
Yeah.
Wasn't he one of them?
Yeah.
So that was, I guess,
No,
cool.
that was Tom Petty.
Or was Tom Petty,
Was Bob
Roy
Dylan too?
Orbison? I think Bob Dylan was in there.
Yeah, you might be right.
Robert De Niro, I think, was in there. I don't know who it was. But my thing is, like, I mean, there's some people who are just become such icons that no matter what they do, they're like Paul McCartney. He hasn't done anything
Yeah, that's
since
true.
the Beatles.
Right.
What's he done? But to get a ticket to see Paul McCartney is $500.
Yeah.
But he hasn't done shit.
Well, but I guess
say. He did say.
When you're when your body of work is that good, I guess you can rest on your laurels a little bit.
Any one of the Beatles, even Ringo. Well, if Ringo did a concert, nobody would pay $100
come
to get it. Mm-mm. But I don't know. There's that whole argument of like if you die young, you're instantly great. Like John Lennon died.
Yeah.
So he was super great. If Paul McCartney would have died, we'd talk about him like he was John Lennon. If John Lennon was still alive today,
he'd be irrelevant, you think?
Well, he'd be doing what Paul McCartney's doing, just cashing in on the Beatles.
Yeah.
Except John Lennon did stuff after the Beatles. Mm-hmm. What did Paul McCartney do? The Wings were terrible.
Yeah, that was.
Like anything he's done since. Has he done anything since except
No.
Say?
Yeah,
Say was great.
It's all been pretty bad, Paul McCartney's stuff.
The Girl Is Mine.
The 80s, everybody was bad. We went through that already.
Not John Lennon. He died in 1980, so I think he...
No, I'm talking about the 80s. If he died in 1980, he's not part of it.
That's true.
He would have been shitty, just like everybody else that
would
went
he
shitty.
have, though?
Yeah. Jefferson Airplane turned into Jefferson Starship, and that was all shitty, and Paul McCartney got shitty, and anybody
John Lennon would have
from
got
the
shitty.
70s to the 80s.
So if you die young...
Heart got shitty.
Heart's great.
No,
all I want to do is make love to
it's
you.
so shitty.
I guess it is shitty.
It's so shitty. Everybody got shitty in the 80s. So eventually John
Michael
Lennon,
Jackson didn't. Well, he raped children in the 80s.
Yeah, he raped children in the 80s.
I guess that's shitty.
Yeah, he's probably one of the only ones that didn't get shitty in the 80s.
Shitty. All right, we'll come back next episode, and we'll start off in August where Sniper Charles Whitman kills a bunch of people.
Oh, that's the one I might have to do.
Caesar's Palace will open. There'll be a plane crash, race riots, lunar orbits. The Beatles will have more
hits and tricks.
Conferences apologizing about the Jesus thing. The New York Herald Tribune. We'll talk about that. The Doors.
The Doors finally starting to
The
exist.
Doors show up. The Beatles play their last concert next episode. We're going to have a lot of stuff. So
come back.
Stick around. Come back.
Jack.
Rate us and review us. We're up to 30 reviews thanks to Melissa. Badass Melissa kicks ass. And she keeps listening. She's from Toledo, Ohio, I think.
All right. You guys, thank you so much for listening.
Music by Matt Truman Ego Trip. Information provided by the stuff we said earlier.
And special shout out to anybody in the armed services that might be listening from overseas because we saw that we had.
We were just looking over on the Libsyn, which hosts us and stuff, and we were looking, and there's people in like Iran and Iraq that are listening.
Yeah, we figured they're probably servicemen.
Thanks.
So thank you for your service.
Or maybe they're Iraqis and Iranians.
Could be. Probably not.
Shout out to McGillicuddy.
All right. Take care. It's time to get out of here, Chuck Berry.
Get out of here, Chuck Berry. Brandon Wilhelm has nice feet.
No, we're done.
Yeah, Green Lady, Chicago, everybody.
When you were all alone,
Represent.
watchtower, kiss in the sky. Well, I was barely a glimmer in my young daddy's eye. I said that we're so tired of hearing about the 60s. One more time, I said we're so tired of hearing about the 60s. Well, make me shut my mouth.
American Timelines is a member of the Queen City Podcast Network, powered by Ortho Carolina. Find out more at queencitypodcastnetwork.com.
Samantha, that's a hickey.